Welcome to Cooking with Scott. This series, Chef Scott Richardson is cooking us some winter treats. On tonight's show, he is making a hearty minestrone to keep you warm on those cold winter nights, followed by creamy mashed potato with roast lamb and a mint aioli, and finishes off with strawberry swirls. Enjoy the show.
Hi, Scott here again in the kitchen. Today we're continuing with our winter treats idea and making a wonderful hearty soup. Now it's Italian in origin, still got a few Italian ingredients in there, but basically it's a Kiwi version. So this is a minestrone. So our ingredients I've got here are pretty well laid out, but what I want to do first is get a pot on the stove, and in my pot already I have some melted butter and some olive oil which I want to get sizzling. Now to that we're going to add some bacon. Now this is just some scraps of bacon. It doesn't have to be anything expensive. It's just diced up nice and fine. So that's going to go into our pot. To that we're going to add some celery and some carrot, and also some red onion and some normal white onion. So I've actually already got the onions chopped, so they're going in there as well. And we'll start to give them a bit of a stir around, get them coated in the olive oil and the butter. Now to that I'm going to add some celery and the carrot. So I've already peeled the carrot. All I do with the carrot is I cut it lengthways and then cut it again. So virtually you're cutting the carrot into quarters, and then we want to basically just run our knife through that. So we're ending up with a little, in chef's terms, what we call a paysan cut, but we're just basically making it all very uniform so it's going to cook together uniformly. Got a couple of short sticks of celery, same process, cutting those into longer, thinner strips, and then we're going to actually again cut them the same way. So all our vegetables are roughly the same uniform size, so they're actually going to cook evenly as well. So we're just going to put those into a container so we can transfer them to our pot. So they're going to go in there with our two different onions, our bacon, and we're going to start frying those down. Now you could add some garlic at this stage. I prefer to leave the garlic out, but there's nothing wrong with adding some garlic in there, whether it's a couple of cloves of fresh garlic or you might just put in half a teaspoon of garlic paste. So we're getting those nicely sweated off. They're starting to soften down. So I'll run through our other ingredients. So I've got some tomato paste. I've got some little just thin strips of spaghetti. So just dried spaghetti. I've just broken into smaller manageable pieces. We've got some cannellini beans. So there's one of our Italian ingredients. So they're already cooked, so we don't add those until near the end. And I've got some diced green courgette. You could use some yellow courgette or a mixture of the both. We need some tinned tomatoes. You could use fresh, especially if you've got surplus in your garden. But basically a tin of tomatoes. And then we need some chicken stock. Now if you don't want to go to the expense of using chicken stock, you could just use some water, but the chicken stock's going to add some flavour. If you don't want to use the Campbell's variety, you could just use the chicken stock and use that and mix that with some water. Right, so they've sweated off really nicely. So I'm going to add our tomato paste, and that's just going to give us a rich tomato flavour. And we want to stir that in. And of course we're all aware of the campaign for prostate cancer to have tomatoes, so it's cooked tinned tomatoes or any tomato product that you cook, and it's got that wonderful antioxidant called lycopene. So it's actually a bit of a protection or an antioxidant that can help protect us against getting prostate cancer for those guys of us who are reaching those sort of ages. So there goes our tomato paste, in goes our can of tomatoes, and then we top it up with our chicken stock. On the recipe I say around about a litre. It will just depend on the size of those vegetables you've put in there. You want to make sure that everything that's in that pot has been covered. Give it a good stir. put a wee bit more in there. Now once that comes to the boil, and we'll say that that has, we're then going to add our pasta. And our pasta goes in, and that's just like if you're cooking pasta at home, that will actually cook until it's al dente, and it will actually swell up as well. So we're just going to do a swap of my pots here. Now here's one that I've had cooking on the stove this morning. So if the camera can see that, there's our pasta that is cooked off nicely. So you can see how it's swelled up. We've got all those nice ingredients that are now softened down. So what we're going to do at this stage is we want to do a bit of seasoning. So a couple of good grinds of black pepper. We want to put a bit of salt in there, not too much, because we're going to add the cannellini beans, and they've been in a brine, so they're going to have some salt in it already, so we don't want to over season it. Now the soup's virtually ready to go now, so what we do is we add our courgettes, and the courgettes don't need much cooking at all. We just want to have those just slightly softened down, otherwise they'll just go away to nothing. So we still want to see that nice green of the courgette, and it's going to add a wee bit more texture to the soup as well. And of course our cannellini beans, they've already been cooked, so all we're doing is warming them through. So as you can see, with all those ingredients in there, a really nice hearty soup. Virtually just about a complete meal. We've got our protein in there in the form of our bacon, we've got our starch in the form of our pasta and our cannellini beans, and just all those vegetables that went in there as well. So we've got a good range of vegetables. So I'm just going to let that come back to the boil. We need to do a bit of a garnish. Now if you had some parsley in your garden, then parsley would be great. I'm just going to do a few slices of spring onion. So we want some of the white and also some of the green. And that's just going to give us a nice finish to the soup. So we can bring our bowl over. Now the great way to serve this with is a really nice French stick or just some sort of bread. So I've just got a nice fresh French stick there this morning. So we've got our soup. Take our ladle. So it's a real heartwarming, really thick soup. Great for those cold winter nights or wonderful lunch. And then with your French stick, all you're going to do is just you could break it into a nice crunchy bit and just stick a big lump of bread on the side, so you can then actually dip your bread in the soup as you're eating it. And then we'll just take some of our spring onions and just finish those just on the top. So there we have our wonderful winter warming minestrone soup. I hope you enjoy that one, and I'll see you next time.